Hello friends, in this class you will be learning how to prepare your glass surface for painting, and then I will demonstrate easy way of painting simple leaves, rosebuds and wisteria on the glass surface using one stroke technique. Glass surface is quite different to paint on it as its surface is smooth and slippery. So sometimes applying a layer of paint as a base coat helps in the paint sticking to the surface. One stroke technique is a technique where you learn an easy and quick way of painting by loading the brush with two or more colors, producing blending, shading and highlighting all in one stroke. I will demonstrate every stroke and help you complete the project in an easy way. You don't have to have any experience with this technique, but once you learn it, you have to practice as much as you can until you master the strokes. So kindly observe the technique and paint along with me stroke by stroke. For painting on glass, you will need the following items: any kind of glass surface, rubbing alcohol or white vinegar to clean the glass, any kind of tape to block out the areas on the glass where you don't want the paint to adhere, enamel paints or multi-surface paints or any kind of glass paints, sponge to apply the base layer if needed, glass brushes, brushes with soft bristles. I am using number 12 flat brush, liner brush, an angle brush and a scruffy. Prepping the glass for painting. Wash the surface in warm soapy water. To remove any labels or stickers from the glass, soak it in water for a few minutes and then you will be able to remove it easily. Then wipe it clean. Dampen the paper towel with rubbing alcohol or white vinegar and wipe the surface clean and set it aside for a couple of minutes to dry. Now the surface is ready to paint. As mentioned before, wipe off the surface with rubbing alcohol on a paper towel or cloth to remove any dust particles. The surface should be clean so that the paint can stick to the surface. I am using a masking tape to protect the top 1 or 2 inches from the rim of the glass. This is done to prevent the paint touching the lips of the person using the glass. You can use any kind of tape. Although these paints are non-toxic and the glass will be baked at the end, it's always a good practice to leave a gap from the rim of the glass. Now I am using a sponge pouncer. You can use any kind of sponge and gently tap in a layer of green. I am using citrus green enamel paint. Dab the paint around the glass surface, covering up all the area. If you find small bubbles on the surface, gently tap over it and when dried, it will vanish away. Once all done, check for areas uncovered with paint and dab over it. Leave it to air dry or you can use a fan to speed up the process. Sometimes you might have to apply a second coat of paint based on the paint you are using. Here I am giving the glass a second coat of paint and then letting it air dry for a few minutes. Then remove the masking tape and we are ready to paint. You can use any size flat brush for this. Bigger size is better for practice. I am using number 16 flat brush. You can use a 3/4 inch or a 1 inch flat brush. Before you start, wet your brush in water and gently lay it flat on a paper towel to remove excess water. Pick up the paint by dipping one corner of the brush in one color and the opposite corner of the brush in another color. Stroke the brush back and forth in a sweeping motion by applying pressure so that the paint goes through the bristles and load it onto the sides. The tip of the brush is called the chisel edge and see that it is always flat. Repeat the process once or twice more until the brush is fully loaded and that is 2/3 of the brush is filled with the paint. Once your brush is loaded, touch the chisel edge of the brush in floating medium and stroke the brush once. This helps the brush to glide easily. You can use water if you don't have floating medium. Now let's start painting. To paint a straight stroke, have a start and end point. Start with the brush straight up on the chisel edge. Apply pressure, lean and slide the brush to the right and then lift it up slowly back to the chisel edge. Repeat it again. Start with the brush straight up on the chisel edge. Apply pressure, lean and slide the brush to the right and then lift it up slowly back to the chisel edge. Let's do it a couple of more times. To paint a leaf facing the right, have a line at 45 degrees angle as a starting point. Place the chisel edge of the brush on the starting point, and as you apply pressure and slide the brush in the direction of the arrow, turn the top edge of the brush towards the direction of the arrow. Let's do it again. Place the chisel edge of the brush on the starting point, and as you apply pressure and slide the brush in the direction of the arrow, turn the top edge of the brush towards the direction of the arrow. Let's do it a few more times. Start at the chisel edge, apply pressure, turn, lift. To paint a leaf facing the left, repeat the same. Start at the chisel edge, apply pressure, turn, lift. I am using a 16-inch flat brush. You can use any size flat brush. The color I am using here are white and Juneberry. These are folk art paints. Dip one side of the brush in light color and the other side in a darker color. Stroke back and forth so that the two colors blend and is loaded onto the brush. 2/3 of the brush should be filled with paint. On the palette, you can see the gradual change of color from light to dark. Draw two parallel lines representing the start and end of the stroke. The distance between the two lines will be the width of the brush. To paint the stroke, hold the brush straight up at the first line, apply pressure, move up slowly to reach the peak, then release the pressure and come back to the second line. Let's practice some more. Do the same moving downwards. Start at the chisel edge, apply pressure, move down, then come back to the chisel edge. If it helps, we can add another line for the peak. For the left comma stroke, start at the chisel edge, twist the top edge to the left, keep the bottom edge pivoted and then slide towards the right. Let's do the stroke now. Start at the chisel edge, twist the top edge to the left and then slide towards the right. So start at the chisel edge, twist left, slide towards the right. Similarly, for the right comma stroke, start at the chisel edge, twist the top edge to the right, then slide to the left. Let's do some more of them at different angles. The diagram shows the movement of the brush for the left and right comma strokes. Twist left and slide right for the left comma stroke and twist right and slide left for the right comma stroke. Now let's paint the rosebud. First paint the upward stroke, then starting at the same point, paint the downward stroke. Then add the two comma strokes on the right and the left. Let's do it once more. Paint the upward stroke, then the downward stroke, then the comma strokes. You can practice the strokes with this practice sheet. Here I'm using a 3/4 inch flat brush, and the colors I'm using are white and magenta. Practice drawing the two lines and the upward U stroke and then the downward U stroke, the comma strokes, right comma stroke and the left comma strokes. So when you draw a rosebud, you first draw the upper stroke and then the downward stroke and the two comma strokes. Now I'm drawing the rosebud. I'm going to draw 3 rosebuds in the form of a triangle. Keep practicing until you get the strokes. You can practice a wavy stroke by moving your brush up and down in a wavy pattern. You can practice it at different speeds. Now I'm drawing the one stroke leaf with the same brush. For painting wisteria, I'm using a scruffy brush. It comes in different sizes, 3/4 inch, 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch. If you don't have a scruffy brush, you can use any old worn-out brush with rough edges. This kind of brush should not be wet. Make sure it's dry before using it. Before that, let's add some vines and leaves as a base, then add the wisteria. For painting the vines and the leaves, I'm using number 12 flat brush. You can use 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch flat brush. Now for painting the wisteria, use the scruffy brush and dab 1/2 of the brush in dark color. Here I am using cobalt blue and the other half in white color. Then dab on the palette couple of times to clear out the excess before going to the painting surface. To paint the wisteria, pounce in the form of a circle. Do not over pounce it, then the area will get muddy. You want to keep the bright color differences. Then tip to one side to get the hanging wisteria look. Wisterias usually hang on one side. If there is more blue on an area or the colors look blended, then load the brush with white and pounce on it. Similarly, if you find some white in an area, tap the brush in blue and pounce on the area with it. Repeat the process till you are happy with the results. Here I am doing the same on a white background. If you see there is more blue, so I'm going to dip my brush in white and tap over to get the combination of blue and white. You can also paint the wisteria by pouncing with just blue for the first time and then wiping off the brush and loading white and putting the highlights. Let's start painting the rosebud. Here I am taking lipstick red and white enamel paints. Load the brush with white on one edge and the red on the other edge of the chisel edge. You can hold the glass by putting your hand inside the glass or by holding the stem, whichever is comfortable. Then hold the glass in a comfortable position at an angle and lay the paint on the glass with very light pressure and paint the first upper U stroke. Let's do 4 rosebuds facing the 4 sides. Leave it to dry and move to the next rosebud. Complete all the first strokes on all the rosebuds on both the glasses. Meanwhile, the previous strokes will have some time to dry up. I am repeating the stroke to make the paint brighter. Now I am adding a small downwards U stroke inside the upper U stroke. Next, stroke the downward U stroke on all the rosebuds starting with the first one. Apply less pressure as too much pressure or restroking will lift up the bottom paint. Continue the same till all the rosebuds are done. At any point if you are not happy with the stroke, wipe off with a paper towel, let it dry and then start the stroke over. Continue the same till all the rosebuds are done. Then repeat applying the left and right comma strokes. Touch the chisel edge on the line, turn and then slide. Do the same for all. You can add small comma strokes to show more petals in the buds. Sometimes if you feel that there is too much paint on the brush or if the colors are getting muddied, then wipe off your brush on a paper towel and reload with fresh paint. Now let's add some leaves. I am loading the brush with white and sap green. I am turning the glass in a comfortable position and stroking 3 leaves at the bottom of the rosebud to cover the base. Repeat the same, painting 3 leaves at the base of each rosebud. Press, turn and slide to the chisel edge. Press, turn and slide to the chisel edge. Wisterias. For painting wisteria, I'm using a scruffy brush. If you don't have a scruffy brush, you can use any old worn out brush with rough edges. Dab in a couple of times in dark blue or any other dark color. I'm using cobalt blue. And then tap slightly on the glass in random positions in the form of a bunch of flowers. Repeat in all the places where you would like to paint them. Then before the paint dries out, tap the brush in white and dab on the same area at different places. You have to press in such a way that both the colors blend slightly and not too much. If you see there is more blue or white, then add the opposite color and repeat the process. Now let's add some vines in between with a liner brush. Take a liner brush with some sap green and add some wiggly lines indicating vines and branches connecting the flowers. There are 2 ways of curing the painted glass item: bake the item or air dry. To bake the item, allow painted item to dry for 24 hours to be sure all layers of paint have dried. Place the project in a cool oven, as the glass must heat gradually with the oven to avoid breakage. Do not place the glass in a hot oven. Set oven temperature to 350 degrees. Once temperature has reached 350 degrees, allow the project to bake for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, turn off the oven and let the glass cool down completely before removing from the oven. Cured surface can be washed 72 hours after baking. While painted surfaces can be safely cleaned in dishwasher, washing by hand in warm soapy water is the best way to extend the life of your project. This is not safe for use in microwave. For air drying, painted projects left in the open air will cure in 21 days. However, air-dried projects are not suitable for use in the top rack of your dishwasher. One-stroke painting is very interesting and challenging, so give it a try and let me know if you have any questions. I would love to see your completed project pictures. Enjoy painting!